Wednesday 2, Charlton 0. 3 changes to the team that faced Doncaster Rovers. Hutchinson comes back in at centre half in that central position. Brennan drops out and Storey moves back out to the right hand side of the 3. Up front, 2 changes after brilliant cameos last week. Berahino and Patterson start at centre forward after earning their spots. Charlton also went 3 at the back, but the surprise for me with them is that Stockley and Lecco didn't start up top. They've had a bad time of it this season, Charlton, which surprised me a bit. I was looking at my notes that I'd got beginning of the season. I'd got them as a top 10 side, which shows what I bleed in now. But they've had a real struggle. Change of manager, still struggling though. But I was always a little bit worried about this game because down at their place, they give us a really hard time. Physical side, put it about. And that was one of the things today that really stood out, was that Wednesday actually bullied them. And I mean, thinking it's a long time since you could look at a Wednesday team and say, yeah, they've gone out and bullied somebody. But that's exactly what we did, almost from first minute. 20 seconds. We play the usual centre routine, although this time we went out to the right. You know, I think I've been watching it Wednesday for 35, 36 years more. That big corner out to the left side. We've done it to the right side this time, and it almost paid off because we got a corner after about 20 seconds at game. And here another thing that I was quite surprised with. Obviously they're in trouble, and you can get that defensive mindset, can't you? You're worrying about conceding. They got 9 men in the box defending that corner, just left the one up top, and that's the mentality when you're having a bit of a struggle. So actually the cross got headed just away from Byers, that first corner, after 30 odd seconds, but it was a sign of things to come. Wednesday scored after just 4 minutes. Hunt down the right hand side, who's been instrumental in helping us get forward and attack in these last few weeks. Great cross into the box. Patterson gets up really well, but the referee's called it back for a free kick on Hunt. That happened to him quite a lot today. Just getting clipped just after he'd already released the ball. Anyway, Bannon whips in, and George Byers, who's been a revelation of late, lovely little glance back header into the far corner. I don't know what their defender's doing because he's actually with him, and then as the ball comes, he sort of goes behind him when ball's coming from that way. Bizarre, bad defending. And in fact, Byers doesn't have to jump. His feet are, on floor, and bad defending, but fantastic glancing header, and just showing the sort of signs of the form that he's in at the minute. Absolutely fantastic. It's a positive start from Wednesday, and we're not really getting caused any problems by them, although they do have one breakdown left hand side. Storey wipes him out, probably a little bit lucky to get away with a yellow card, but the first 10-15 minutes, it's completely Wednesday. Now a lot of the talking point the last couple of weeks being Berahino and Patterson and So and Canberra, and who's going to replace Gregory and Windass depending how long they're out for. Both the forwards did really well last week against Doncaster, came on the second half and looked quite impressive. We talked about Berahino looking a lot bigger and stronger, and he carried that on today. His upper body strength looks far better than his previous appearances, and he was doing exactly the same thing, receiving the ball, holding it up well. But because he's not as big as you think in terms of height, he's bulked out a bit, but in terms of height, not only is he holding it up, but he's got that little low centre of gravity, and he was holding the ball and turning and getting the passes out wide and linking the play really nicely. Patterson, for this part, charging about like a fucking lunatic. Brilliant. What I did like about these two up front, and I don't think Patterson's a natural striker despite the 2 goals, but what I did like is not just the work rate and what they bring as a partnership. We've talked about this time and again. It's not always about just picking your best players, it's about them little blends. And Berahino and Patterson, I thought, did blend quite well. You've got the aerial power of Patterson and his physicality. Berahino with that lower centre of gravity, and like I talked about, that ability to turn a man and the little touches, and I think they complement each other quite well. But it's actually in the closing down and defensive work that they work the best of all. One of the problems we talked about being at season with Gregory certainly, and when we were playing the 3 up front, but even when we went to a 2 up front, was the isolation and getting too far apart. Talked about it last week with Canberra and Sol, 20 yards apart, which when you've got the ball you want them closer together working around each other, but equally when you haven't got the ball, if you're closing down you've got to work as a chain. You're only as good as the weakest part, the weakest link of your chain, and as a forward pairing there will be certain positions and traps that the manager wants them to go and press from, and they did that brilliantly today, working as a pair and going and closing people down. Johnson's another player who's really grown in the last few weeks. I mean, no one will ever take away from him what he was doing at centre half, because he's doing a favour, he's helping out, he's doing a Patterson. Yeah, go on then, boss, put me in, I'll do what I can. Not his natural position, but now he's back out there on the left. He's really, really flying at the moment. And he was giving Matthews, who's an experienced campaigner with a decent career record, by the way, he was giving him a really hard time. But things took a worse turn for Charlton when he had to get subbed off with a concussion injury. I've seen it twice. I've actually seen a little highlights about 5 minutes ago. Still don't look that bad, but you can't take chances with head injuries, so he's off. And it actually affords Johnson even more room to get in, because the lad who replaces him is more attack-minded and he's leaving them spaces in behind. Even so, gets to about 20-25 minutes, but Wednesday's on top, but the game starts going a bit flat because they're not really coming out that much. So I start to worry a bit. It might be a bit like the Doncaster Rovers first half, when Wednesday were having the sort of ascendancy, but couldn't really get any proper shots on target, not creating any clear-cut chances, as it were. And that can become a problem in terms of keeping your tempo going and keeping your rhythm going. And it did fall a bit flat, I would say, for 15-20 minutes up to probably half time. But for all that, Wednesday were mixing it with them. On the occasions when Charlton were getting the breaks out, the tackles were flying in, and not just Luongo and the players that you'd expect to be making tackles. I mean, Hutchinson swept across and made a really good run, as did Liam Palmer. But Luongo in there expecting that, but Byers and Bannon really getting stuck in. As soon as Charlton had any slight inklings of a break, bang, in, tackle. It's probably about half an hour when we have our second, what I would consider proper shot on target. Again, it starts with Bannon and Byers winning tackles in midfield. A little bit niggly down here on this near side. The pitch in great condition, as we know. And that near side's covered in sand. But two niggly little tackles down there by both. The link, Bannon gets sent away and he cuts, Dobson shows him inside. I mean, we said this time and again, when Bannon drifts to that right hand side, the number of defenders who show him inside towards box is actually incredible. Drives inside, just kills one, just past far post. Bit reminiscent in my mind of that goal that he scored at Crewe earlier in the season. So Wednesday, controlling the game, not really creating too many clear-cut chances. And we've had a bit of a flat spell, really, just apart from these one or two odd breaks. And there's these little rallies of head tennis where it's just bobbling about in midfield and 5-6 headers, from either side. Could talk about headers, actually, not only because of the goal that Byers scored, which was a great header, well-directioned header, a technical header, if you know what I mean, but the defensive headers. I knew that he was a real good ball player. We knew that's basically all I knew about him when we signed him, but he's really showing another side to his game. He's done it again today. He was doing it at Donny last week, getting stuck in with them tackles. Headers, the physical side of the game that I didn't really appreciate that he got, and he looked really good. Wednesday won loads of headers today, which, as you know from a video I did about 4 to 5 weeks back, I did think was becoming a problem for us, but really seemed to have addressed that. Talked earlier about Johnson and the threat that he provides. He'd given that Matthews a tough time, and his replacement came on. Quite attack-minded. Little one to Luongo plays a lovely. In fact, it's a wonderful team goal because it starts right from the back. And I know we can complain about playing out from the back. There's a time and a place, but this was a time and a place because Charlton weren't really putting us under too much pressure. So Peacock Farrell to Story, and it gets moved out to this side. Hunt back in, Hutchinson, Bannon, and then Luongo, little turn. slide rule pass. I love them balls. Right through centre half and full back. Johnson gets after it, delivers a lovely cross, and Patterson's in there to slam it home. I mean, if you're being ultra critical, you'd say that the strikers had made the same run. Maybe they should be splitting, but both desperate to get on the end of it, which is a really positive sign. Berahino and Patterson both desperate to get on the end of that cross. In fact, Berahino threw a ball at the back of Patterson's head after he'd scored it, because he was desperate to get in there himself. And that's a great sign to see. Charlton brought Stockley on at half-time. I don't know if he's been out injured or what. I couldn't particularly understand why he didn't start. So if I look at that first game of the season right back at the Valley, Stockley gave a Wednesday backline then a really hard game. It was Iorford and Hutchinson, I seem to remember. He gave him a really hard time, especially up in the air. He was winning headers, all elbows. I've got a feeling it was him who knocked Patterson out in that game. He gave Peacock Faddle a bit, and quite a menace. So he came on at half-time. It looked a bit of a reshuffle, but it was hard to tell. At times they looked like they were playing 4 at back. Sometimes it still looked like it was a 5. As I said, I think one of the issues was that the lad who came on and replaced Matthews in the first half was playing quite advanced. So it might have made it look like it was a back 4, but it might have possibly meant to have still been a back 5. But if it was lopsided anyway. So sweeping into a 4 and a 5 at various different times. As it was, Stockley came on and didn't really have much impact on the game. Johnson did get caught napping a little bit. He won a ball 55 minutes, went into our box. At first you can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to get afterburners on just to get it past man so he can clear it, but then there's another one coming in, so he sort of dawdles a bit. But actually it's him recovered who probably does just enough, and Peacock Faddle ends up with a routine save for a keeper of that quality. But the warning signs are always there. When you're in your box, it's got to go. Ironically, it's Johnson who nearly puts us 3-0 in front, because great ball down the centre of the park from Bannon, plays Patterson in with a little sort of dink, heads it back across, and Johnson's coming in at back door, and honestly you think it's a goal that all ends up, and you've got to say it's fantastic defending from Gunter, because he's out of the picture. He's well out of the picture when that ball's getting headed back across, and it's absolute determination to get back and stop that shot going on target. So fair play to Gunter there. Although what I was reading on Twitter before the game, Charlton fans, 1 or 2 of them weren't happy he were playing, but that was really good defending. More and more, I just can't see us losing. We're on a good run, but I can't see us losing while we've got this midfield 3. Luongo, Bannon and Byers, they just complement each other so well. Luongo just sitting deep. We know what a ratter he can be back there, and he's just got that presence and awareness, and he's always looking to shield across in front of back 3. Also really good with those rangy passes from deep that we've talked about before. Byers actually showing himself to be a little bit more of an all-rounder than we perhaps thought. As I said, we all knew he was a ball player when we signed him, but he's showing more physicality. It's not the greatest strength for his game. He's quite slightly built, but he's really getting up and winning his headers, and he's really getting in and winning his tackles as well. He's also got that little bit of sharpness that he makes a lot of interceptions. And Bannon, of course, the freedom he's now been afforded with Luongo back in the team, and to be fair, Byers at times will drop off and almost make a 2 with Luongo at times. And Bannon's got the freedom, he's popping up on the right wing. As I said, defenders seem to show him inside for some bizarre reason. Popping up on the left, and he's getting in them little pockets of spaces which we've known that's where his main threat is, probably from Carlos' first season. In fact, I still can't help but look back at that time and wonder why we didn't persevere with Lopez, Lee and Bannon 3-man midfield that season, rather than that lopsided 4-4-2 that we started to go with. But that's probably an argument for another day. It's not raking over old coals. It's a valid point, because it's the same what we're doing now with the 3 midfield. We've done that then. Yeah, I know he's doing well over there, but I'm not digging him out. I'm just saying, stick with the plan. If you've got something that's working, stick with it. Don't tamper for sake. Berahino gets rested in second half, and that's fully understandable. In fact, there were a lot of changes today and substitutions that Darren Moore made, and I really want to give him some credit for it because the squad is still quite thin on the ground. We got a safe 2-0 lead. We'd never really looked under any particular pressure from these, although the lad Lecco came on in the second half, and why on earth he didn't start, I don't know, because he genuinely looked their only threat, their only player who were possibly going to do anything today. But Wednesday never really looked under any threat, and so Darren Moore's looked after his players today, so he's rested Hunt, he took a couple of late ones actually, but he's been busy, and with Mendes Lang out, Hunt really is the only option on that right hand side for starting games at this time, you would have thought, until Iorford or whoever can come in back and perhaps free up Liam Palmer. So it's good that Darren Moore was one eye on the next game. Yes, we're going to need Jack Hunt, so let's give him a breather. Equally later on, the same with Marvin Johnson, again, who's been vitally important. And of course, when you're playing three at the back, those wing backs are getting through an incredible amount of work getting up and down. They've probably got the largest area of the pitch to get up and down and cover. That takes a lot of stamina, that takes a lot out of you. So, smart management from the gaffer there. It starts getting a bit of a dull game. Wednesday in complete control without having to really do that much. When Charlton do have these rare sort of forays, Wednesday are in on him, winning tackles, ratting in there. And I thought that was a positive of Wednesday today, even though it wasn't a great game, it wasn't a great football match. I'm pleased that they didn't fall into the trap of just trying to keep the ball for the sake of keeping the ball, which can be easy to fall into. They were still trying to mix the passing up, and we've talked about this from day one of the season. If you can mix your passing and you can play different styles depending, I don't mean week to week, I mean from one 10-minute spell to the next. This is working or it ain't working, let's go longer, let's go shorter, let's go quicker. Some nice little spells today when Wednesday were playing some really good one-touch stuff, and you can see the confidence draining out of Charlton when we were doing that in little spells. They did have ball in net from across. It was an header well saved by Peacock Farrell, and the rebound got tucked away, but they would have been given for a blatant shove on Canberra. And funnily enough, there was another blatant shove on Story about a yard away from that action, so it could have been blown for either of them. I mean, it's a warning shot, but Wednesday never really looked under that much pressure, to be honest. We got a free kick at about 75 minutes. It was a penalty. I actually think it was more of a penalty than the one that we got against Doncaster last week, where, the ball gets blasted from here and the kid's hand were here. Didn't know what it could do last week. I thought that was a very harsh penalty. Today, the lad's, his feet are outside box, but his arm's in box when he hits it, and the cross comes from 2 or 3 yards away, and I think he can get his arms out that way. I think he has done it on purpose. But free kick to Wednesday. Probably should have been a pen. But equally, 10 minutes after that, they've got one, and that's waved away. And I probably wouldn't have complained if that were a penalty either, to be honest with you. So it sort of cancelled each other out, really. Free kick for one, nothing for the other, but probably both penalties. One of the talking spells today were Wednesday's set pieces. They tried to do the Rotherham one at one bit with the outswinger to Liam Palmer up back, but theirs got cut out. But we put a lot of near post corners in today. There were a lot of grumbling, because obviously the danger is they can go out or they can not beat the first man, and that's the risk you take if you want a near post corner. I don't know what the recent stats are, but I saw one about 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer actually, but it was something like 85% of corners taken to near post resulted in goals because they're incredibly hard to defend, especially for goalkeepers, because they don't want to come clambering over a series of bodies in front of them. It's very hard for them to get there and make them claims. Anything a bit deeper, more towards the centre of the goal, it's there for them to try and get up and pluck it. But anything that drops in short in front of them, they're having to get through them bodies. They weren't brilliant today, Wednesdays, but you could see the ideas. And earlier in the season, we were putting a lot to the back stick. We had the mid spell, just before Christmas. We were putting a lot just to maybe a yard outside the penalty spot, looking for Dunkley all the time. So the delivery might not always be the best, but what I can actually see is that Wednesday are trying different things from the set pieces, which that's a positive thing to see, that they're always looking for different ideas and ways to try and make an opening. We're going to talk about Charlton, really. I was really surprised at how poor they were. I thought they won at poorest side that's been to Hillsborough this season. And like I said, I know they've changed the manager. They're down at wrong end of the table, but I was surprised there didn't seem to be that much desire. There was, Gunter made a couple of good blocks. I thought the keeper had a good game, but there didn't seem to be any huge urgency to the play, and there was no cohesion. They had a little spell, I would say, for the last 5 minutes and maybe the last 5 minutes of the first half. And there was a spell, a 5-10 minute spell in the second half about midway when it was, I won't say end to end, but I would say when the possession was a bit more even. But even then, there was no zip. Do you know what I mean? There was no spark to the play, and there was a lot of pass and watch, whereas Wednesday were doing pass and move, and you get that from confidence. You can tell where they are in the table from the way that they played, and that's something that can only get worse if you're not picking points up. But I was surprised they didn't try and be more physical, because when you're down that end of the table, that's one of the things that you can do, isn't it? Is win your battles. You're not always going to play well. You're not always going to play sparkling football, but you've got to win your battles. And I thought Wednesday bullied them today, and I was quite surprised by that. Man of the match is difficult. It wasn't a brilliant game. It wasn't a brilliant performance, but it was a professional performance. And I can't really think of anyone who had a bad game. I thought Hutchinson was really good again. His experience, his reading of the games. The odd time they did float a pass across that might have got behind one of the wide set of halves, he just swept across. I thought Story was excellent again. He's been a superb little loan signing. I thought Liam Palmer was very good. Very good. Won a couple of really good tackles. He swept across, actually, 30 yards across pitch and cleared one in first half when one of their goal kicks had bounced awkwardly and got over the top and got past us. And of course he's played 3 positions today. He's played left centre half, right wing back, and he's played left wing back. And that sort of versatility to do that is invaluable over the season, as we've seen with Callum Patterson. And I think Palmer's playing probably the best football he's played in his career with us at the moment, and he's looking a very, very useful player in this division. And if the other thing is, he's rarely injured. We've had a lot of good players this season, a lot of players we've had high expectations for, who for various reasons have been injured or took knocks or strains or whatever, and had large spells out. He's there every week, and fair play to him. I thought he had another good game. The midfield 3, I thought Bannon were excellent. Thought he was all over the show. Gives the ball away a fair bit because he's always trying something, but I'll never bollock people for trying something. It's when people aren't trying stuff really that I start getting out, right? So he's trying stuff. Byers is looking really crisp. He looks sharper and sharper every week. Luongo's just Luongo. You know what you're going to get. Win, give. Like I said, he's got that lovely little curl ball that he likes to play. Berahino, I thought, was sharp again. Hold up play really good. Looks a lot more confident. Looks strong. Working a lot harder as well. But really, for me today, it's down to 2. It would be between Byers and Patterson, I think, and not just for the goals that they've scored, but for the work rate and the desire. Because every game, if you do that every week, you've got a chance. You're not always going to play well, but if you're working hard, you've got a chance. And they all worked out today, but I thought them 2 in particular. But overall, I would have to give it to Patterson because I thought he led the line. I thought he led, along with Bannon to an extent, the tempo that we played at when we did squeeze and when we did press them and when we did activate these sort of traps when they did come out to play a bit. I thought he was barging people off ball. He weren't giving them a second to play. and you could see their faces dropping all over the park. I mean, at one bit he popped back up at right back. He was all over the show, closing down. Like I said, fantastic he got his goal. He's got a winner's attitude. He's got a never say die attitude. And for me personally, that goes a long way. I always want to see my teams working hard. I always want to see the players working hard. And he epitomises the sort of player that every single team in the league needs. They all need a player like that, or two or three of them. Thought he was magnificent today. Not the prettiest, but effective. And that's what football's about sometimes. It's not about being the best footballer. It can be about being the best player, the most effective player. And I thought he was great today, Patterson. So yeah, come on Patterson, my man at match. So, comfortable 2-0 Wednesday win. Could have been 3. Very poor Charlton side for my money. I do feel a bit for them. I mean, it's a trek, innit? But also, not just a 2-0 win and a clean sheet, which is always a bonus, but we have actually now made it into them playoff spots. I know you can say it doesn't particularly matter that much, but I just think it does give you that psychological boost. So I'll have a quick look at table. That win pushes Wednesday up into 6th place, 58 points on the board, just a point behind Sunderland. They got back to winning ways today. They got a 3-0 away win against Wigan, which was a bit of a turn up for the Bucks because they have been on the slide, Sunderland, dropping like a stone. It's a 3-0 away win. I hope this isn't a sign that they're turning a corner and that Alex Neil's tactics aren't starting to take hold there. But Wednesday are well placed. Games in hand, of course, on Sunderland and Oxford and MK Dons. I mean, you'd rather have points in bag, but at least they're there for the taking them points. It gives us that opportunity. Oxford won again, which is a shame for us. They got a 4-2 win in the, I don't know what you'd call it, the boat race derby. They were playing Cambridge. So they've got a decent head of steam. I think they've won 4 out of the last 5. But when Wednesday are in there, and I'm looking at that and hoping we could be that team that comes up on the rails and catches everybody off guard. And Wickham, look at Wickham down there in 8th. They were second for a long time and top for a spell. They seem to have fallen away a bit. Some interesting games here on Tuesday night. Portsmouth are taking on Oxford. Like I said, Oxford been doing really well, picking up points, scoring goals. Scored 4 against Cambridge today in what would you call it? Is it the boat race derby? I don't know, but they're in a good run of form. I think they've won 4 out of the last 5. They're up in 4th position. Playing Portsmouth, who are down in 11th, but Portsmouth have been quietly going about their business. They've been starting to nick goals here and there and picking 1 or 2 results up, and they're a little bit of a dark horse, I think, Portsmouth, just finding a bit of form at the right time. So that's not going to be the easiest game in the world, that, for Oxford, despite where they are and form they're in. Wigan taking on Fleetwood. Wigan will be hoping to get back to winning ways. Fleetwood down in 19th. On paper, you would say it's a Wigan win, but given the form that Sunderland have been in the last few weeks, you'd have banked for a Wigan win today, but they've got spanked 3-0 at home, so maybe there's 1 or 2 things there we don't know about. Maybe they've got a few injuries. It could just be down to Alex Neil, getting his tactics and his way of doing things over to Sunderland lads who've been on slide. But that is a big result today, and it makes you wonder if there's something going on there. Wickham, like I said, they've slipped away as well. They're down in 8th. They've got Cambridge in 13th, so that'll not be an easy game for them either. So if Wednesday can get a win against Burton, I think they've got opportunity to really start cementing themselves in there and getting a foothold. So there we go. Clean sheet for Wednesday. 3 more points in the bag for Wednesday. Unbeaten run extended. Favourable fixture, I think, coming up on Tuesday, and other teams round about us have. There's 1 or 2 of them all got to start playing each other and teams in vicinity. So every chance for Wednesday. Now they've got into this top 6 spot to really try and cement that. Anyway, enjoy your Sunday. And it is Sunday and all, and I'll see you for a preview for Burton game. Take care.